It's Wednesday, May 12. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson. In 2020, Jamaica's tourism ministry took a hit owing to the COVID-19 pandemic. In an effort to resuscitate this sector, the Jamaica Promotions Corporation, JAMPRO, will continue to facilitate investment in tourism during the new financial year. Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Audley Shaw, made the disclosure during his contribution to the 2021-2022 sectoral debate on Tuesday in the House of Representatives.
As we are all aware, the tourism industry has been severely impacted, regionally and locally. My ministry, through JAMPRO, continues to work closely with our colleagues at the Ministry of Tourism to attract and facilitate key tourism investments.
Mr. Shaw highlighted several tourism-focused investment projects being facilitated by JAMPRO.
We have been successful in our recovery efforts so far. Of the 29 projects facilitated by JAMPRO, the largest was the Ocean Coral Springs Hotel, valued at US $250 million, while the largest expansion project was the Montego Bay Airport runway and terminal expansion, valued at $115 million US. These are both projects which will contribute positively to Jamaica's tourism products. We are pleased that some 4,800 rooms are slated for development over the next 3 years. This demonstrates that despite the pandemic, investor confidence in this sector, tourism sector, remains strong.
You do not need proof of child abuse to make a report. That's the word from Director of the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, CPFSA Northeast Region, Carolyn Stewart. She says all suspected cases should be reported to the agency. She told the Jamaica Gleaner that her team has been conducting a drive-through in St. Ann to educate people on the issue. The drive-through formed part of CPFSA activities for Child Month, themed Every Child Deserves Protection, in an effort to interface with residents about child abuse and emphasize the need to protect the nation's children while providing parental advice in the process. Scores of flyers with relevant information were also given out during the drive. Jamaicans living with lupus are being urged to register with the National Health Fund and access drugs needed for treatment. Speaking at a virtual forum on World Lupus Day on May 10, Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tufton said the government spends millions of dollars in support of lupus patients. We get more from Simone Absalom Gale.
To date, over 900 Jamaicans with lupus have accessed the services at an investment at over 12 million Jamaican dollars in the last financial year. The NHF subsidizes over 120 medications for lupus, and I encourage those persons affected to enroll today and utilize 105 fully operational drug-serve locations and 49 public-private sector pharmacies to access your medication for treatment.
Dr. Tufton says the government has been playing its part to advance services for patients by supporting initiatives that improve the awareness and understanding of lupus. Monday's forum was convened by the Lupus Foundation of Jamaica LFJ under the theme Unmasking the Many Faces of Lupus. President of the LFJ, Dr. Desiree Tullow-Reed, explains the reason behind the theme.
Persons who are living with lupus actually, they actually deal with many things. And so, for instance, they're dealing with, the frustrations or even complications that come with delayed diagnosis, debilitating symptoms, especially during flares, side effects from treatment, high cost of treatment sometimes, and disruption of school and work. You'll be hearing more about that, these experiences, family, relationships, but there's a stress actually of living with a condition that may be poorly understood by the persons around them. And from what I've heard, this is a significant source of stress because, and this is where sometimes the mask comes in. So there is sometimes not saying that you have lupus is one of the ways that you kind of try to deflect, the stress or the stigma related to that. And the other way is that, if you have lupus, you kind of just, try to pretend or try to go through because you feel that it'll be poorly understood.
Dr. Toloreed says there is no cure for lupus, but the best option for persons who are living with the ailment is to control it through treatment and consistent monitoring.
Do we have a cure for lupus? This is always the first thing that people ask. And we don't yet have what we would call the cure, the one thing that would take it away and it never comes back. It was guaranteed never to come back again. Although there are ways to do that, there may not be safe ways like bone marrow transplant and so on. That's an extreme. Right. So people don't do that deliberately to treat lupus. They may be treating something else and it happens to put the lupus into remission. Right. So digressing. So we don't have the cure, but actually treatments have come a long way, and it's real now. It is possible for most people to achieve control of their disease with the right treatments. So the goal is to gain control of the situation and then secondarily to maintain control.
Lupus is a disease that occurs when your body's immune system attacks your own tissues and organs. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Simone Absalom Gale.
The Tax Administration of Jamaica, TAJ, says there are thousands of uncollected driver's licenses at their offices. We get this and other market details in this business report. The Tax Administration Jamaica, TAJ, is advising all motorists who have submitted their applications for the renewal of their driver's license cards up to March 1, 2021 to visit the tax office where the application was submitted to pick up the printed card. The announcement by the tax authority has become necessary as it says it has over 14,000 uncollected driver's license cards in its possession across its network of tax offices. Driver's license holders who submitted applications for renewal can collect their printed cards at the tax office where the application was submitted by taking along their current or expired card and their receipt. For those persons opting to have someone collect the printed driver's license card on their behalf, that individual must present a letter of authorization signed by a notary public, consulate or justice of the peace JP, along with a valid form of national identification. Taxpayers are being reminded that the payment for the renewal of a driver's license can be done online on TAJ's website at www.jamaicatax.gov.jm. The following documents are to be submitted to any tax office to complete your transaction: a printed copy of your receipt, completed application for driver's license transactions, Form F7, one passport-sized photograph of the applicant, no less than 6 months and not certified, and a copy of the current or expired driver's license if available. Motorists are further reminded that the turnaround time for the printing of renewed driver's licenses stands at 20 business days. Persons are therefore able to check the status of their application using the online driver's license renewal status service on TAJ's website to see if their renewed license is ready for pickup. The status check process is as follows. 1. Logging on to TAJ's website. 2. Enter your username and password. 3. Go to e-services and select the option Driver's License Renewal Status. 4. Under the e-services tab, enter information required for renewal of driver's license. You should include your taxpayer registration number, TRN, and payment receipt number. In Tuesday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 2,143 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 97 stocks, of which 57 advanced, 27 declined, and 13 traded firm. The Junior Market Index advanced by 53 points to close at just over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica, Barita Investments Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica Limited. Stocks declined for 1834 Investments Limited, Blue Power Group Limited, and Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited. Trading firm were AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, Caribbean Producers Jamaica Limited, and Honeybun Limited. Future Energy Source Company Limited ordinary shares was the volume leader with 9.5 million units, followed by Sagicor Select Funds Limited Financial with 1.5 million units, and Dermon Trading Company Limited with over 1 million units. In foreign exchange trading for Tuesday, May 11, the US dollar sold for an average $151.94. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $126.15. The pound sterling traded for $214.18, and the euro sold for an average $187.47. Oil prices rose on Wednesday on signs of a speedy economic recovery and upbeat forecasts for energy demand, supported by vaccinations against COVID-19, although waves of infections in India and Brazil curbed gains. Oil prices were also supported by the outlook from the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries OPEC, which on Tuesday stuck to a forecast for a strong recovery in world oil demand in 2021, with growth in China and the United States outweighing the impact of the coronavirus crisis in India. Brent crude futures climbed 83 cents to $69.38 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 86 cents to $66.14 a barrel. In today's Living Healthy, Dr. Lawson Myers of Ligony Family Dental gives important tips on diabetes and gum diseases.
I found another gorgeous spot. If I don't tell you where to find this, you would never know. Halliwell has all these beautiful jewels, like this beautiful waterfall, tranquil, peaceful, soothing. So you know what else is soothing? Food. Comfort foods have a lot of sugars, and that provides energy. And if the body is working well, your pancreas takes those sugars, opens the keys to the cells and energizes them. But if it's not working well, you may end up with a condition known as diabetes. Lots of people have heard of the term diabetes, but I'm not sure that they understand exactly what happens. So you know something? With diabetes, you have to be very careful because you're very prone to infections. And if you have an infection, it can create complications. I'm pulling you into the mouth now. Periodontal disease. Have you ever heard of that? The periodontium is a fancy name for the soft tissue, as in the gums, and the bone underneath the gums that hold the teeth in place. When you are not brushing and flossing regularly, the soft buildup that accumulates every day becomes hard, and it eats away your bone support, and it causes the gums to become inflamed. If I should take that amount of inflammation that is in your mouth when you have periodontal disease and put it on the outside, it would be about the size of your palm. Now, any diabetic knows that a small infection is a problem. An infection that size is almost at a crisis stage. So here's the thing. Diabetics have to make sure that they are free of periodontal disease. Because if you have periodontal disease, it can hinder the control of diabetes. But then if your diabetes is not controlled, it can hinder the control of periodontal disease. So the two have to work together. So brushing, flossing, visiting your dentist regularly, and if you're diagnosed with periodontal disease, get it treated immediately and controlled. If you control the periodontal disease, you help to control the diabetes. Simple as that. Then you can come to places like this and enjoy. See, I found this great little rest stop on my way back from the waterfalls. Remember, sweetie, come brush me. Diabetes means that you have additional sugar building up in your body. If you are diligent with brushing away plaque and using your floss accordingly and treating periodontal disease, then you can make a big difference in controlling diabetes. Listen, I'm out of here. See you next time. Facebook, YouTube, and our LFD website. See you next time on HD's Jazz.
In news from the region, on Tuesday, Dr. Carla Barnett created history by becoming the first woman and the first Belizean to assume the role of CARICOM Secretary General. Dr. Barnett, who earned her PhD at the University of the West Indies, Mona in Kingston, Jamaica, served previously as Vice President of the Senate in Belize and was also a Financial Secretary, Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Belize, and Vice President of Operations of the Caribbean Development Bank. She has also served as Minister of Government in Belize with various portfolio responsibilities over the course of her tenure. Dr. Barnett takes up her appointment on August 15 following the end of the term of the current Office Secretary General, Ambassador Erwin LaRocque. High-level meetings to secure Trinidad and Tobago's gas future are ongoing with the country's upstream gas producers. Ministry of Energy and Energy Industry Stuart Young spoke of the meetings at the virtual signing of a gas sales agreement between the National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago Limited and the Trinidad Nitrogen Company Limited on Tuesday. We hear more in this report from Terry-Ann Brown-Campbell.
This country's economic prosperity has always been tied to its ability to produce oil and gas, to monetize those commodities and the products manufactured from them. Minister of Energy and Energy Industries Stuart Young said his ministry is in the midst of negotiations to help secure TNT's economic future.
We continue at the ministry level to be driving conversations with our major upstreamers to secure supply going forward into the future. But right now, through the hard work of some of the people in this room, what you've seen over the past few months, if you all are following it closely, is a certain level of stabilization.
Minister Young noted that based on gas that is currently being produced, this country only has 2 more years, or until 2023, of natural gas supply. But he said that things are changing.
We're also currently in negotiations with Shell with respect to Manatee gas, which very often you ask about Dragon, but the Manatee is a real success story, and us being able as a government to de-link the Manatee side from the Lauren side to allow us to get into Manatee and to be able to produce the gas in Manatee to keep us going, that is a big accomplishment.
The minister added that the Manatee field will be of great value to this country.
The Manatee field is going to be the largest significant investment in our upstream production in the past few years, let me put it that way. And right now we're at a very sensitive stage of negotiations and discussions.
The NGC and Stringent signed a 3-year gas contract for the supply of gas to Stringent's 2 ammonia plants on the Point Lisas Industrial Estate. Terry-Ann Brown-Campbell, TTT News.
In St. Lucia, the Ministries of Health and Education are urging the island's adult population and parents to do their utmost to ensure that the resumption of in-person classes are not upended by an outbreak of COVID-19 cases. Authorities are placing the onus on grown-ups to act accordingly and take heed of the public health measures nationally to avoid another interruption to the school year. The details in this HTS News Force report.
Public health and education officials continue to implore parents, teachers, and students to comply with COVID-19 protocols to ensure the continuance of face-to-face classes within the education system. In the latest update on the status of in-person instruction since the resumption of physical classes in mid-April, officials are underscoring the importance of cooperation. Chief Education Officer Dr. Fiona Philip-Meyer explains protocols such as hand hygiene, mask mandates, and physical distancing are critical given ongoing community transmission of the viral disease, particularly among adults, some of whom are parents.
There are great responsibilities attached to adults in particular. The statistics as per the Department of Health speak to a significant number of adults between the age of 24 to 49 being impacted by the COVID-19. Many of those adults are parents, they're staff members, they're individuals who work within various sectors. And so we encourage our adults to take on the greatest responsibility in terms of protecting and keeping our children safe. We would like to remind all educators that they must continue to adhere to established protocols within the schools. Similarly, we want to ask our parents to be partners with us. to follow the protocols as it relates to in-school activities, but also within their own homes.
School-aged children account for only 8 to 9% of COVID cases and are more likely to contract the virus in the wider society and not the classroom. Dr. Maya has urged parents to keep children who have contracted or have been exposed to COVID-19 at home and away from school. Public officials are also seeking the cooperation of parents, school administrators, and guardians in discouraging loitering after school hours. Authorities warn that the virus spreads quickly among gathered masses of people.
As per suspected cases, individuals in isolation, COVID-19 positive cases, and one of the major precautionary measures that we want to always undertake is to leave children at home in which a household has been impacted. And we speak to both suspected cases, individuals in isolation, as well as COVID-19 cases. That precautionary measure will definitely help us within the education system. When we have been given the all clear from the Department of Health, we'll more than welcome our children back into school. We want to also remind our parents that we've seen an increased number of students in certain parts of the Castries Basin in particular. Parents, you have a responsibility, so does the school, to remind our children that they need to get home within a stipulated time and that they should avoid at all costs any large gatherings and loitering within the city.
Public officials have made it clear that COVID-19 cases in schools are inevitable. However, they stressed that the impact on the system can be mitigated by adherence to established health protocols. National epidemiologist Dr. Michelle Francis explains that testing, quarantine, contact tracing, and isolation are instrumental, and admittedly, failure to follow these measures are causing setbacks to the pandemic response.
Persons who have been placed in quarantine are asked to adhere to the quarantine measures as explained by the public health experts. Persons in the same household as a confirmed case of COVID-19 should not leave their homes to go to work or to school. Instead, they should get tested to determine their COVID-19 status. Persons who have been tested for COVID-19 should also remain home until the result of their test is given to them and await further guidance by public health officials. We have noted that persons are continuing to not adhere to the COVID-19 policies. Persons are not adhering to quarantine, and this represents a significant problem in terms of managing COVID-19 on island. Persons who have tested positive do not adhere to home quarantine, and therefore the likelihood of transmission to other persons in their families, in the community, in schools, and in work is greatly increased.
Dr. Francis gives assurances that departments of health and education continue to monitor the health situation to minimize transmission and protect the student population. But ultimately, keeping school compounds open to learning will depend on the country's ability to reduce the rate of infection. Joachim Duplessis, HTS News Force.
The Barbados Secondary Teachers Union and the Barbados Union of Teachers want more stringent measures implemented in schools amid the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. More details from Barbados Today.
It comes on the heels of another case of the virus at one of the island's secondary schools. Last week, a student at the Princess Margaret Secondary School tested positive for COVID, and now a student at the Ellerslie Secondary School has had a positive result. BSTU President Mary Redmond says the development is a cause for concern.
Teachers are naturally very concerned about the occurrence of a second case of COVID infection in the schools, essentially in 1 week, since the student was at school last week and would have been positive then. Our concerns revolve around the question as to whether this was an infection as part of a family cluster, or whether the student was a single infection and not a case resulting from a known contact. The implications of the latter especially are obvious in a school setting. We also have concerns as to whether siblings exist in that household and are in attendance at other schools.
Equally concerned is BUT President Pedro Shepherd.
So it is something that it is something that is inevitable, and I think that the real concern now has to be managing the process. I don't think that we can panic at this stage as we did in the earlier stages. I don't think there's any need for us to panic. I think once we establish that there are known cases in any institution, whether it is a school, whether it is a business, that we seek to isolate, seek to quarantine, seek to manage the situation. The unions were asking for a September date, and we continue to maintain that September was indeed the better time to restart schools, because we were of the view that we needed to manage the community spread, we needed to manage the clusters, we needed to ensure that persons, teachers, and other adults get both jabs so that they would have some level of immunity.
And over in sports, we bowl off with cricket. Legendary fast bowler Sir Curtly Ambrose has dismissed any chance of the West Indies rediscovering the stellar form which typified their halcyon era of the late 1970s and 80s. The Antiguan said while there were quality players among the current generation, they were simply not enough to compare to the galaxy of world-class stars which had spearheaded the Caribbean side's unparalleled success in the past. He was speaking in an interview with Talk Sports on the Grenada Sports YouTube channel.
This is no disrespect to the players we have now, because they got a couple of guys who have some quality in them and can become great. But what you have to understand that I don't think we will ever see those great, exceptional glory days again. It's going to be difficult to find another Viv Richards or a Haynes at Greenwich or a Brian Lara, a Richie Richardson, you know, a Malcolm Marshall, Curtly Ambrose, Courtney Walsh, Michael Holding, Andy Roberts, and the list goes on and on. Clive Lloyd, you know, it's going to be extremely difficult to find those quality players again.
West Indies dominated world cricket first under Clive Lloyd and then under Sir Vivian Richards, winning the inaugural 50-over World Cup in 1975, successfully defending their title 4 years later before losing in the 1983 final to India. Currently, West Indies lie 8th in the ICC Test rankings and 8th in ODIs, following a protracted run of poor form over the last 20 years. And that's the news. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe. This is PBCJ, the People's Station.